Hi, I'm Jay Jacobs, and welcome to Going Beyond the Scale. If this is the first time that you've ever been here, let me give you a little bit of idea about what we do. So the idea of going beyond the scale is it's really a lot of people nowadays kind of get so worried about what they weigh, what their size is, what their shape is. And what I love to be able to do is work with people and support people to do what I call live the life that they love and live it well, because I think it's really important that we balance our lives. So it's sort of like we're not just in one particular place. We have a job that we absolutely love, and then we kind of go downhill because we're not taking care of our health. Or maybe we're really focused on our health. We're at the gym all the time and we're eating healthy, but we're not really, having a healthy relationship with ourselves or a relationship with our family. So each week, each time that we kind of share with you guys, we're looking for ideas that will help inspire you and have you think a little bit differently about the life that you're living. So I'm extremely excited today because I know a lot of us a lot of us that like to travel, would love to travel, and I really miss it. So I'm looking forward to it, traveling in the next couple of months. But I wanted to bring on today a good friend of mine, Andrea. Good morning, Andrea. I'm glad to see that you're here. I wanted to bring her on because Andrea is definitely, if you looked at her Instagram, I wanted you to see what she's up to. You'll see that she's a world traveler. She's somebody that is very much into living life well, being healthy. But I thought if anybody would start us thinking, planning, and as she might say, cleverly traveling, Andrea would be that person. So thank you for being here. And Andrea, the first question I really want to ask you, I've always loved the handle that you have, the clever traveler. So for the people that don't know about you, like, where did that come from? What was the genesis of that idea?
Well, thank you for appreciating it. Of course, everybody, when they're naming their brand or their company, it takes a lot of thought behind what is it going to be called? What are people going to remember you? And really, what is going to resonate on the audience? Why should they follow you? It really should give them some insight. So the intention of the Clever Traveler, the mission was to give people insights into the cultures of the destinations they would be traveling to. This way, they would be able to submerge themselves more in their experiences. I had in my travels have, I guess, matured and developed my travels and my experience in many ways. I was one of those people that would go to a destination, not fully understand the why this building was here, why would people found it important, why people were converging here or there in that plaza, what it meant to them. So I realized that the more I watched from the History Channel or information or sources like that, that people would see like, oh, those are very serious. I'm just here to relax. It felt very different knowing why it was so important for locals. Then you would get a different sense of deepness of experience and you would attach yourself to those trips a lot more. So I thought if it helps me, it probably helps other people as well to get just some insights into why they're visiting, where they're visiting, and why it's important to others. A lot of people hate going to, they call them the tourist spots, for example, the Arc de Triomphe or all those. But if you understand the meaning, why are they so important, why they're so popular, and not just, okay, it's pretty, let me take a picture, everybody knows it, it's in all the movie shots. When you get a deeper understanding of why this structure was created, how the population raised money to have it built, you just find a deeper understanding and more of a connection to why you're there. And it makes it worth it that you traveled for so long and probably had a bad you were in this plane for so long and it was a different cost for you. I don't know. It just, for me, that's why the Clever Traveler, that was my mission for it. Yeah.
It's interesting that you share it that way because we met a couple of years ago and I didn't ask you, and you were very generous when Gloria and I were working with everybody, and you came in and you were curious and you asked me questions. And what I loved about it was you were very generous because you would come back and you would ask me things and then you would try to figure something out and then you would help kind of direct me in a particular way. And that's what I love about you, is that I always know that if I ask you a question, you'll either give me an answer, something you feel very strongly about, or you'll be like, you'll think about it. And so now I really get, I know that I always enjoyed listening to you and trusting in what you were sharing, because I knew you were somebody that really looked at things from a broad sense. And my instincts were right about talking to you about travel because, as I said to you, I wanted to kind of introduce that idea today because not everybody's traveling. And once we kind of open up a little bit more, I'd love to be able to have you come back so that more people get an understanding of some of that. So with that being said, with all the restrictions and things that are going on right now, I learned something the other day. I told you I was very happy because I was going to go on a trip to LA in middle of May. But nobody said boo to me. I knew about restrictions and stuff, but nobody really said anything. And then what was happening was I realized nobody's telling me what I can or can't do. And you started mentioning things to me. It's like, oh, you know what? I know what's going on, but I'm not really paying attention. So with everything you know with travel right now, what are some of the basics that you would tell people to either look into or pay attention to or whatever as they start to think about planning travel?
Well, thank you for asking that question. There's so much uncertainty of restrictions, logistics that you need to understand before you book your trip, plan a trip, or all that. Information is so widely diverse when it comes to global and international travel versus regional travel. So today I'm just going to focus more on regional travel because when you're talking about international travel, it also not only depends on the country you would be visiting, also what country are you visiting from. For example, if Dubai had lower restrictions or easier restrictions for you to arrive, that also could be directed to either someone from Europe, the UK, not necessarily to the people from the United States. So there's a lot of components and variables when we're talking about international destinations. Even if, and not only restrictions from that, you could also be traveling from, for example, the United States to New Zealand, but does it matter if I actually I have a citizenship there or does it not? So then you're talking about what kind of passport, not only where you have been. So it's a little bit more complicated. So let's focus on within the United States.
Great.
Within the United States, I'm happy to say that we have vaccinated over 10% of the population. So this really correlates to where you can travel right now. As of this Friday, they were hoping to meet a target in California. So restrictions were going to be lowered by Monday. So you would be able to go there and enjoy dining in, go to the gym if you wanted to, even go to the movie theater. So when we're talking about where are we traveling to, things that you want to look out for is go to the CDC travel page. There you can log in, write where you're traveling to, what are their restrictions, and where you're traveling from. So you can really narrow and target what you have to bring to the table and how are they going to respond to you. If we continue with this example for traveling to New York to California, for example, yes, you can go there. You can go there, but they really do want you to stay 10 days within LA before you move out of that county, out of that state. So you're talking about, yes, I can get in, but my travel now has to extend a period of 10 days, and I was only planning for a weekend. So you really have to go deep into what are all the restrictions and requirements after I arrive. Also, it's after understanding what kind of restrictions of getting on the plane or if you're driving there, also what experience will you have after you reach that destination? If you have this beautiful idea that if you go to Hawaii, will you be able to enjoy the scenic? Will parks have any restrictions because of where you're coming from? Do they need for you to test positive or negative from COVID-19 for the COVID virus 2 days before, 3 days before? Would the vaccination be accepted if you do it outside of their state, or does Hawaii need you to actually take the vaccination from people they trust? So these is also adding not only restrictions to your travel, also time. I was planning to arrive in Hawaii, go to the falls, but now the first thing I have to do is go to a center, register myself, get a vaccination, and all these things that you normally just, when you're talking about leisure travel, not travel for work, you're just planning, oh, this is what I can afford, and this is my allowed time. Let me just go. So traveling it's just tied hand in hand when it comes to COVID. How is the pandemic doing? How is the rollout of vaccines of that country or state that you want to go to? And then the other one is, how are you treating COVID restrictions? I am someone that, for example, when they go out, even if they're going the outdoors, they will be wearing a mask. Some people, when they go out into nature or to a pedestrian walkway, as long as they don't go into an establishment, they're not wearing a mask. They only wear it when they have to go inside.
Mhm.
So that may be how you are seeing and how you're living this COVID era. But if the moment you travel somewhere else, there may be some kind of legal restrictions that are forcing you to be someone who you are not, and that may not be as enjoyable. So you just have to research a lot more than we did before. All that being said, we do have some tips. Like, it's definitely safer for you to travel via car than on a plane. You can control the settings within the car. You can control who's in the car there with you. It's when you get to your destination, where are you going to stay? We do have tips like if you're going to stay in an Airbnb, try to get to an Airbnb where you can have reserved the whole apartment, the whole house. Don't try to divide between travelers that you're only reserving, for example, one room and someone else that you don't know is in the other room. That's another one. If you're planning to go to a hotel, hotels are very open right now and transparent with what kind of restrictions or cleanliness policies they're enforcing throughout, not only on the rooms and cleanliness, but also what will be the restrictions that you will need to abide by when you're in their common spaces, like the lobby area, the pool area, and all of those. So you can now have a safer way to travel if you still want to travel.
It sounds like, I mean, I know it's common sense, but it definitely sounds like for all of us. And I didn't do it when I booked with United. I was so excited because I was able to get the ticket. And I told you it was like $197 round trip, which was ridiculously inexpensive. So I'm there for 10 days, so I don't have to worry about it. But from what you've shared, I can see where it makes so much sense to call the concierge or call the front desk and tell them that you really want to be there. But it sounds like probably they'll be pretty helpful to give you that information. It almost sounds like if you just ask for it, you might not have to do all of it on your own. I would tend to think if anybody's going to know, probably that hotel's going to know. So I think that's one of my big takeaways from what you shared as well. I think that's going to make a lot of sense.
So I would agree with you. I just don't like assuming or assume that the person that I'm contacting is going to be as vigilant as I am when it comes to research. For, again, this person might think that, as long as you wear a mask, you're fine. As long as you don't cover your mouth, you only cover your mouth, you're fine. So maybe they won't have as much information as you would be wanting to have. But I do agree with you. The travel industry is, I'm not going to say the one that's been hit the hardest because I don't really have that data all the way granulated, but I will say it's one of the ones that has been hit the hardest. I think all of us know from when it comes to the hotel industry, when it comes to travel flights, or the cruise and all those. So if you think of it that way, yes, it's definitely an incentive for them to be as informed as they can to attract you to stay with them. So I would definitely think that would be maybe the first call before you dive into your own research and spending all that time. Maybe they already have all the information investigated for you.
That was a very Andrea answer. I love that because it's like, yes, and what I love with you is yes, and which is great. The other, let's pretend. Let's try pretending for a second. If let's say fall or 2022, because I do know, I've read, and you're more of an expert than I am with this, there are a lot of people that are booking things for 2022. So if somebody looks at your Instagram account, they can tell you've traveled many places, you've enjoyed, and I really got the sense of you've really enjoyed where you are. And then, like what you shared, being clever, you really want to understand, not just to look at things, you'd like to understand some of the background and the story to it. So if when things are better, what are some clever things? What are some tips and things for people to kind of think about? Let's say if they're planning for 2022 because they just are like, this doesn't make sense to chance it for now. What would be some of the things that would make sense for them to start to do?
Well, one thing that I would tell you before we dive into this beautiful scenario is pay attention. There's something called the digital vaccine passport that they're thinking of making sure that anyone that boards or goes to these destinations can prove that they had the vaccine. So we do know that it can be 50% of the USA population that doesn't get vaccinated, even if it's
Yeah.
2022. But they may be planning this beautiful vacation, for example, to Bali, but the airline will not allow you to board because that's one of the restrictions that they haven't
Okay.
integrated to their planning. But let's say we have everything resolved and we're going to Bali now, or we're going to Europe. I would still encourage people to travel to places where they can be outdoors a lot of the times. I would continue to think safely as knowing who you're traveling with. I would, if I can, I know it's sometimes about a budget, but try not to travel to hostels where you're traveling or being next to a lot of people that you don't know what are their, how they live, how are they seeing safety, cleanliness, and all that. So I would still encourage people to think safely about COVID, and still travel to places where you can enjoy with the person that you're with or with the group that you're with. So travel in groups. They can also verify that everybody is on the same page, and go to places where you can enjoy the outdoors and be in nature and have a lot of air. I have seen a lot of people, because I think New York is one of them, that we have been confined in very remote places. So we're all daydreaming of where we could be, and those travels that are not as practical, but we always said one day I would love to go, for example, to New Zealand, to Maldives, or to these exotic locations. I say go. This is something that I think you realize that life is short.
Yeah.
Take advantage. You will so not regret doing something like that. And if you're traveling to some place like this, normal things would apply. That just research as much as you can about the other culture. There may be even a barrier when it comes to languages. Just plan like that. It's so fun to do the planning of a trip of a place that you don't know. When I was traveling, for example, to Russia, I was listening to documentaries of like what it was the custom for their wardrobe. I learned that you shouldn't smile because they find smiling in Russia to be fake, because those fake Americans that are smiling all the time and being hypocrites, that's how they saw smiling. So I would make sure to be as serious as I could. So go to that remote place that you've always wanted to, and just do your research and enjoy what you will be doing. That's what I would plan. I still think currently if you plan right now, even if it's for 2022, you will still enjoy these being able to change your flight.
Oh yeah.
Because you're still planning it during a time where airlines haven't recuperated what they have lost during the pandemic. So you can be, outrageous and say in May of 2022, and then still fall under that policy that you can change your trip without any additional fees. So I shoot for the stars.
I think one of the things that I also, in thinking about what you've shared so far, it makes a lot of sense to actually spend, and Americans, as you kind of know, we there's a lot of impulse, and we have the destination and we just want to go, like it's a notch in our belt. But what I really I think what COVID did for myself, and I think it's done for a lot of people, is it slowed us down, made us be more grateful. And I think, to your point, what I take away from what you're sharing is, okay, going on the trip is always great, but planning the trip is exciting too. So I think that I love your idea of like watching, documentaries, doing more research, so that you're almost embedding yourself in there before you actually go, so that when you actually go to see what maybe Gaudi did in Barcelona, or you saw something like, you're going to have a richness about that, which is different than just like, oh yeah, that's beautiful. And I know that sometimes happens a lot of times when Americans go and they travel, it's on a surface. So it sounds like a deeper dive while we have time and being a little bit safer probably makes a lot of sense.
Before moving to New York from Florida, I watched the whole Sex and the City show all over again, as well as Mad Men, because I knew they were based here. And now that I'm thinking of like LA, I'm thinking what movies show a lot of the landmarks there that I could connect myself, even if it's not with the history. It can be like, oh my God, this is an awesome place that everybody comes to film. So yeah, you can definitely have fun with it. Sometimes this whole part is as exciting as actually the traveling to the destination. So yeah.
If you now you've been to, I mean, a ton of places, but is there one place that you know you're going to go to? But I mean, what is a place that you've just always dreamed of, but you haven't gone there yet? What would that be?
Um, so I've gone to 43 countries. I
Whoa.
know that sounds a lot, but it doesn't when you compare to other travel bloggers.
Okay.
Um, Places that they're on my list, but I did 1 year and said anything that was on my list, I try to check it off and see how would go. One of them was Japan. It still is. I haven't been to Japan, even though it's not something that you wouldn't have thought. That I think that's
Yeah.
what people like expect you to say. I haven't been in a safari in South Africa. That'd be super fun. I love going back to Europe. I know people say, okay, you've done Scotland. No, I haven't done Scotland. I did Ireland, but I haven't done Scotland.
Very different.
So those are on top of my list. I would love to go to New Zealand as well. And another one would be the Maldives. There's a lot of destinations that I have heard because of the yachting blog and the other platform that I have for yachting. So you hear
Yeah.
a lot of things that are connected to the Med. And Maldives is on the top of that list. Everybody's going there, so of course now I want to go as well.
Yeah.
But again, there's so many. I will say there's not a lot of stuff in this continent I haven't been, or it's like something I really want to go to. Machu Picchu is definitely on the top of the list. It's been on the top, and I've already have everything researched. But at least in South America, I've been to many other places. I am from Venezuela, so many things are very similar to my culture. And personally, I try to look to places that are so different that make me shock. For example, what got me into the spirit of traveling was when I went to Egypt at the age of 15, when I
Mm.
realized I knew nothing about the world. The culture was completely different. How they socialized with their families, how they would go out at the end of the day, like at 10 p.m. to have family picnics at the park because now the sun was down and it was actually cool. It was such a shift in mindset that I realized I knew nothing, and that's what always wanted me to go to cultures that are very, very different than mine.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I've been to Japan. You will love it. It's like no other place. It's wonderful. And New Zealand is gorgeous. Maldives, I definitely want to be able to go there someday too. And Machu Picchu is on my list as well. I think that what I love what you just shared is the fact that all of us, we have a lot of obligations, but all of us have so much luxury of actually being able to travel around the world. And quite frankly, yes, some of it's really expensive, but a lot of it's very affordable. And I think that I'm a little bit older than you. So I will tell you, the older that I get, if I go back and look at the things that really were powerful, were those trips where, like what you said, you just get a whole different worldview. And I think it's good for the world. The more people travel to more places and understand there is different culture, but we still are, as human beings, we're more alike than different. And so I think that that's I love people like yourself that are avid travelers and people that are sharing with other people, how to do that, because I think it just makes everybody much better. So it's great.
Well, I have a friend of mine that I think he has traveled more, and he truly inspires me. And for a very long time, he had never left Miami. And
Wow.
then all of a sudden, 1 year, he decided that every year for a month, he would travel to someplace different. And when I say different, he went to the Sahara Desert 1 year. The other year, he went to Singapore. And when he goes another year, he did Japan. So first of all, these are destinations you have to seriously prepare yourself for the
Yep.
cultural shock. Not only for you to actually be fine with it, also not to offend other people, not to get in trouble because you did something that would be offended to them and actually legally wrong. He also looks at it from as many layers as he can. For example, he'll do the luxury hotel one day to see how people that travel like that sees it, to the extremely cheap Airbnb or hostel. He'll try to go to a sports event to understand what it is to cheering. And then he'll also try to even take a cooking class to understand the cuisine. So I've really been inspired how he's been so bold to throw himself from Cuban from Miami to I'm gonna be that guy in the Sahara Desert. I'm gonna be that guy in the
Yeah.
camel. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's a great thing for us to end on, where I would love people to do, as I said to you guys a couple of days ago, please follow Andrea and take a look at what she's doing, because start to do your planning, start to dream, start to think about that. And as she would say, be clever in what you're doing. And I think that I love when things move a little bit further along to have you come back and share some more ways in which people can continue to travel. Because I think if there's one thing that's going to come out of all this, when the dust finally settles and we all are back to whatever that normal is, like what you said, life is short. And I think that the only thing that you don't want to do in your life is regret things. And I think that travel, if you love to travel, I think for any of us, we don't want our lives to be over. But I would say that probably a lot of us would be like, oh, if we knew that was going to happen, we'd be like, I missed this, I missed that. And I think that more than ever, it's time for all of us to be grateful and to go out and explore and, come together a little bit more too. Because if one thing that the pandemic did, we certainly know truly, whether not political, but there are no freaking borders, guys. Like, there's no actual for real borders. So I think that travel can be a good way for all of us to be better ambassadors to each other and have the world be a little bit better place. And there still will be people that like to mud wrestle, but that's just how human beings are. So,
I want to add to that. While you're planning these luxurious, very time-consuming trips that may require you to do 2 to 3 weeks off, because just getting there is like a 2-day ordeal. Treat your city as what if you were leaving it tomorrow. For example, did you ever go to all those, we all have that list of brunch places or that restaurant that we always pass by and say, one day I'll try it, one day, because you can always put it in the back burner because it's so close to you. But yeah, go to your local zoo, go to your local botanical garden, and treat the city like you are actually a tourist. And you'll see so many parts of it that you have never seen. It's cheap, it's right there. And you could probably do it under COVID-19 restrictions, because you won't need to rent a car or maybe not go into this restaurant because but you can do a picnic instead. So you can definitely bypass a lot of the COVID restrictions because you are local and you would know how to bypass these restrictions. So you don't have to think about COVID-19 has hit many of Americans when it comes to our budget. So saying that we're all desperate and we're gonna jump on a plane the second we can, it's not really realistic, because a lot of us has to, get back on our feet, save money to actually spend it on. So try to take every day like if it was your last, and enjoy where you are.
And see, Andrea, now people are going to know that I wasn't making up a story about you. What you just did is exactly what you do with me all the time, which I love. Is like, I'm going down a particular path, and then you kind of very nicely go, oh, I heard you, and I'd like you to consider this. And it's like, that was brilliant. That was clever. That is great. And that's great advice. I love that, because it is traveling in a way that's very rich and delicious. And yeah, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. So thanks you guys for being here today. As I said, please follow Andrea. And as you can see, she's very smart and very hopeful. So pay attention to what she shares, and you'll get the luxury that I've had of listening to her and learning lots of things. So thanks again, Andrea, and we'll see you sometime down the road. Okay.
Yes, hopefully in person soon. So thanks again for having me. It was great to connect, even if it is via the laptop.
Sounds good. Okay. Have a great day. See you guys later.